Hey folks, welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to show you guys all the tips and tricks about your stored procedures, right? I'm going to take you guys from the baby steps. How can you write your stored procedure? How can you alter it? And first things first, why do we even need a stored procedures, right? And what are stored procedures, right? I'm also going to show you guys how to execute it with the different ways, and how can you create your stored procedure with parameters, right? How can you alter it? How can you drop a stored procedure? And what is called a system stored procedure, and what is the difference between a system stored procedure and a user defined stored procedure, right? Let's get it started and let's go one by one, right? So first things first, what is a stored procedure and why do we need it? Stored procedure is nothing but a bunch of t-sql statements, right? They're gonna run in given order. It's basically you have your stored procedure to automate constantly running or manually or a repetitive task, right? So that you're doing with your SQL statements. You don't want to do it repetitive, right? You're going to a mission or a computer to make your life easier. So that's why you use a stored procedure to make your life even easier, so that you can automate, or you can automate those repetitive steps to go much faster. It's also better in terms of performance as well, right? Yeah, as well as there is also one more way. You can call your stored procedure within your front end C# script or JavaScript, so that you can make your changes to your database or pull the data from your database and present it to the user in the front end, right? So these are the different advantages of using a stored procedure, and why do we need to go to stored procedure, right? Now that we have seen that, I'm going to show you guys how can you create a stored procedure, right? But before that, let's take a look into an existing stored procedure. How does it look like, right? So you see here, so you have your bunch of statements here, and then this is basically the crux of your stored procedure, right? So you have your create procedure name, right? Create procedure, that's keyword, and then you have your procedure name. You can write any name you want, but then I strongly suggest you use USP, right? Prefix your stored procedure name with USP underscore, right? I'll tell you why. USP stands for user stored procedure. In a few minutes I'm going to explain why do you need to call your stored procedure as USP in a few minutes, right? All right, so now first things first, let's just write a SQL script here. Select star from dim product, right? Execute it. So it's going to give you all the product details within this product, right? Nothing, right? Let's say if I wanted to automate this, let's try to automate this piece before we go into fancy stuff. Let's just try to understand the stored procedure. Let's try to automate this piece, right? My use case is basically, instead of me writing all these the SQL statement, basically I wanted it to just with the click of a button, I wanted to get these values, right? So that's exactly where you user stored procedures will come into handy. What is the syntax? So create procedure, right, and name of your procedure, right? I'm going to prefix it by USP and name of the stored procedure, USP underscore. So in this one I'm going to say read products, right? As soon as you write that, you have to use your as keyword, right? As, right? As soon as you do that, then you have to use your begin keyword, right? Begin. After the begin, you can put your statements here, right? And then once you have put all your statements, you can end that stored procedure, right? So basically, if you see the syntax here, there is a create procedure and you have your procedure name, right? Very simple. And then you put your as, right? That's a keyword, as. And once you put your as keyword, you have to have, you can have your begin and end, right? In between your begin and end is where you put all your SQL statement, whatever you wanted to whatever you're repetitively running, right? That's the crux of your stored procedure syntax. So now that we have the syntax here and we have wrote your stored procedure syntax, let's go ahead and execute it, right? All right, so now that I already have a stored procedure called USB read products, so I'm not able to run it, right? So that's another thing that's going to take me to explaining you another thing which is really important. I wanted to show you this. there can only be one stored procedure with one given name, right? You can't duplicate a stored procedure, right, within the same database, right? So that's one thing that you need to know. So in this one, since I already have a stored procedure called read products, I'm going to call it, read products, test, right? Why don't we do that? So execute it, right? As soon as you do that, now the stored procedure has been created, right? It hasn't been executed, right? You can't see the results right now, so you can't see the value of these, you can't see all these rows from your dim product table yet. The procedure only has been created. Now let's go ahead and take a look into the procedure and try to execute it. But where do you find a stored procedure? You have to go to your AdventureWorks database or any database where you're creating a stored procedure. Go to the database, right? Go to the programmability folder, right? And go to stored procedures. Now I don't see that, right? But I need to refresh it. As soon as I refresh it, I see that here, right? It's the same stored procedure whatever we created here, right? Now how do you execute it? There's a bunch of different ways. I'm going to show you one by one. So right click execute, right? This is graphically executing it. So I can just hit OK, right? You see all that all the records are all here, right? So select exactly whatever you're doing here, you're just doing it just with a click of a button. Right click, execute stored procedure, hit OK. That's it. It's it's a lot easier. But you might be in a thought right now. This is just a very basic statement. Select star from a table. I might as well run it instead of storing this as a stored procedure, right? It's super easy. You are exactly right. So this specific statement is super easy. However, there are a lot of other bunch of different complicated statements you can write. For example, update a table with a bunch of different parameters that will be passed into your stored procedure in runtime, right? What do I mean by that? I'm going to show you that. And that's exactly where most of the stored procedure, that's exactly how most of the stored procedures are written. And that's exactly why you write a stored procedure also. So let's take a look into here. In this table, right? So sorry, in this stored procedure, let's say I wanted to, write the stored procedure to see only select top 10, right? That top 10, that number 10, I'm not going to decide it. I'm going to make the user to decide it. So I'm going to get that value from the user in the runtime, right? And then I'm going to pass it into the stored procedure in the runtime, and I'm going to see that value. Let's say if the user says, give me top five rows, right? I'm going to give him top five rows. Let's say if the user say, give me top 10 rows, I'm going to give him top 10 rows, right? It all depends on whatever the user is asking. So let's go ahead and write that. You know what? One more thing I wanted to show you while I'm going to explain you that exactly. I cannot, if I create the stored procedure again, I know I cannot create that again, right? Because I can only have one stored procedure, but I can alter it. I can alter the same stored procedure. I don't want to create a new stored procedure just for the, since it's just a demo, I don't want to create a new stored procedure. Let's just keep it simple, right? So I'll just call it as, same stored procedure name, but I want to alter that stored procedure. I want to alter that or modify that, right? And then I wanted to, make some changes to the statement, right? So alter is the keyword that you need to use if you wanted to modify it, right? So keep that in mind. So you have this here. So I wanted to see only top, right? Whatever the user wants to select, right? So let's just try to create the syntax here. Select top, right? Let's just call it 10 here, right? Just like a placeholder before we, completely finish scripting it, right? This is exactly where I'm going to show you guys how can you use your parameters in your stored procedures, right? So let's go ahead and write it. As I already told you, I'm going to get the value from the user, right? I need to get that value from the user in a placeholder, right? What is a placeholder? That is called as a parameter. So how do you specify that? With a at symbol. At, in this case, I'm going to say, I can give a name for my number, right? So I'll just say top number, right? And I need to specify the data type of it. Since it's a number, I'm just going to say it as integer, right? It cannot, you always have to write a stored procedure, in that specific, integer format. You can't put a decimal right there. So I'm going to say integer here, and then, in this specific place, right? So I'm just gonna run the script here just to show you how this is gonna look like. You see here, now when I say top 10, it's gonna give me only top 10 here, right? This number 10, if I replace it to 5, it's gonna give me, only 5, right? So this decision I'm gonna let the user make it, right? So why should I do it? Let the user do that. So I'm just gonna pass this user defined value here, sorry, the parameter. I'm gonna pass this parameter, right, into this brace, right? So I'm gonna execute it, right? So now this stored procedure has been altered, right? So we made a change to this existing stored procedure that we had. We added a parameter to the stored procedure, right? And then now we're going to run that stored procedure, right? So right click, execute it, right? You see here, it's gonna ask you to pass a value to this, to this variable here, or to this parameter. So I can pass any number here to this parameter, right? That will be stored in this parameter, and in the runtime, right, this value, whatever you're gonna pass here, that's gonna be replaced here. So this place will have a number 10, right? Right. So as a text, this will it's gonna be changed as number 10, right? Or whatever I specify here. Let's say if I just specify 4, right? This exact space will have a value 4. So it's gonna look like select top 4 star from dim product in runtime, only in runtime, right? Not in the compile time. Compile time is gonna look like just like this, what you see here. It's gonna the stored procedure is gonna just look like this: select top add top number, start from the dim product, right? That's exactly how it's gonna look like in compile time. But in runtime, this add top number, this specific parameter, is gonna get replaced with the value 4. Let's go ahead and see how it's gonna look like. Let's hit OK. See, it's gonna give me the first 4 values, right? That gets me to showing you guys what are the different ways you can execute it, right? There's very easier way to execute it. So you can just call your stored procedure name, just like this, right? You can just run this specific text that's gonna give you the values. uh, However, that's only going to give you values if you don't have any parameters. If you have any parameters, you just need to hit a space and give the value for your parameters. In this case, let's say what, I'm just gonna wanting to see top 5 values, right? So just select it and run it. It's gonna give me the exact same value. So I can just keep on changing this, right? I can just get the same exact result, right? Customized result, right? Alternatively, you can also say execute, right? Execute your procedure, right? Like this, exact same value. Or even exec, right? Exec. That's also going to give you the same result, guys. So you see, apart from this, you can also run it in different ways, like what, right click, execute from your graphical view, and you'll get to this specific bunch of statements, and you can execute it from here as well. So different ways, it's up to you how you wanted to use it. Next thing, let's go back to the agenda here. So we have seen how can you create it, how can you execute a stored procedure, how can you execute a stored procedure, in a different ways. How can you create a stored procedure with params? How can you alter a stored procedure, right? And now I'm going to show you guys what are system stored procedures, right? And how is it different from the user defined stored procedure that you said. Remember, I already told you I'm suggesting you to use USP underscore, right? So you wanted to always prefix your stored procedure name with USP underscore. Why should I say that, right? So Microsoft is recommending that always you have to avoid using, right, this specific thing here, uh, right, SP underscore. Do not prefix your stored procedure with this specific text SP underscore. Why? Right? Microsoft, when they created this product, like SQL Server, they have created a lot of predefined functions or system defined stored procedures which are having a prefix SP underscore. So they have standardized their system stored procedures with the prefix sp underscore. So they don't want you to use that reserved keywords sp underscore, right? So do not use that. I mean, you can use it, it's not going to cause any fundamental or functional issues. However, it's going to cause you sometimes some ambiguity issues, or you might have a same stored procedure, users different stored procedure that's going to have that's also going to have the same name as a system defined stored procedure. You don't want to go to that issue, right? So that's why always use this prefix usp underscore while you create a stored procedure, right? Or you don't even have to use your usp, just put some name there. The reason why I'm saying, right, put your usp as your prefix is because it's going to clearly indicate to any user or any database user who's going to look into the stored procedure folder. He can easily read it through, and he can see when it says usp, which means my development team has created that stored procedure, right? So it's super easy for him to understand, for anyone who is gonna look into the database. So that's the basic idea of that. Now I'm going to show you guys system defined stored procedures, right? So one example I'm going to give you, sp help text. So this stored procedure is going to show you the text, whatever you see here, right? The stored procedure text. I'm just going to close these ones quickly, so that I can show you the text of the stored procedure. The text that you see here, the select top, whatever you see here, this exact text you can get it through here, right? You can also say right click, alter or create, right? Right click script stored procedure as create. You can always get it from here, right? You can see, as you can see the text from here. But how do you do it programmatically? That's where the system defined stored procedure sp underscore help text comes handy. So I'll show you what it is. So copy your stored procedure name, right, and then paste it next to sp help text, and then execute it, right? It's gonna give you beautifully the text of the stored procedure in a tabular result, right? How amazing is that? So that's basically the sp underscore help text. It's really helpful. It might not be helpful immediately, but some use cases you might end up using these text of the stored procedure, in 1 in 1,000 use cases. But it's how to do that now. Also, there is another stored procedure, system defined stored procedure called sp help, right? sp help, that's going to give you a lot of other details, like create a date time, the type of the entity, what are the parameters it has, type, length, and whatever all the other details it has, right? So these are system defined stored procedure. Now I also wanted to show you guys how can you use your update statement in a stored procedure, right? So now let's go back to the dim product that we just created, right? So I'm just gonna quickly close all these, right? So I'm gonna show you guys an update statement. How can you use your update statement within your stored procedure? I'm also gonna close this, right? Let's create it from scratch. So your read product stored procedure, I'm just gonna run this, right? No, I didn't specify the top number. Right, so let me just execute it again. Execute, right? I'm just gonna say give me top 5, right? So I have my top 5 here. In this one, if you can notice it here, in the English product name column of this table, dim product, it has the first value as no name. So the value of English product name is no name, right? I don't want that. Let's say I wanted to replace that no name with bicycle, right? So how do I do that? So I have a primary key here. The product key is number 1. So I'm going to use that identifier to create a stored procedure, and I need to do that dynamically, right? I can put one day I can put it as bicycle, right? Some other day I change my mind, I put it in I change it to motorcycle, right? Some other day I change it to car or something else, right? So that's going to happen dynamically, right? So let's create a new stored procedure here, right? So create procedure, right, and then procedure name usp underscore update product, right? In this one I'm gonna use the same parameters, right? So before that, I just wanted to show you guys the structure of it. So let's go ahead and finish up the structure. Create procedure name as keyword that you have used before, and then begin, right, and then end, right? So this is basically the skeleton of it. In between, I'm gonna write my update statement, right? Just because I need to modify the table and replace that English product column name, English product value name from no name to bicycle, right? So update dim product, right? Set, right, English product name is equal to, what, let's just call it something, right? Let's just keep it like a placeholder. It's not going to hurt us. Something uh, where product ID, product key, right, is equal to something. Let's just give some number here, right? Now, so this values here, I'm going to pass it runtime, right? So let's just go ahead and create those parameters. So first parameter is for the English product name, English prod name, right? Clean. Now I'm going to say the data type of that. So it's going to be a varchar. So varchar, and the size is going to be 50, right? You can have a super huge product name, right? You still have that space. All right. So English product name first parameter. Second parameter is going to be a product key. So I'm going to call it as product identifier, product ID, right? And it's going to be an integer, right? So now that you have these ones here, these parameters defined, I can go ahead and replace these so-called somethings with that variable name or a parameter name. So the product key is going to get replaced by the product ID parameter. So that's how you write your stored procedure with an update statement. So now that I'm going to execute it, right, I'm going to refresh the stored procedures folder within my database, and I can see my update product stored procedure here. Right click, execute it, right? I'm going to pass and the product name details here. What is the product name we decided? Bicycle, right? Bicycle. And where should I replace? Wherever the product key is 1. What is the product key? The product identifier, right? So now what's going to happen is the English product name, right, that has the value bicycle, right? That text is going to be bicycle. That text is going to get replaced here, right? And the text on the integer 1, which we have mapped it to the product ID, that's going to get replaced here in runtime, right? Let's go ahead and run it right now. Then let's see what happens. All right, I ran it, right? So that got executed. Let's go ahead and read that table. Right click, execute the read stored procedure, right? All right. All right, so now that's needing a value here because we remember we changed that stored procedure with the parameter. Let's go ahead and say top 5. Give me the top 5 of that. All right, so now the no name English product name that you had has been replaced into bicycle, right? You can clearly see here for the product key 1, right? So this is basically, guys, how you can use your stored procedure to modify something, to read something, right? Or you can also use it for deleting something, right? You know how to use your parameters, right? So within your stored procedures, so you can play around with that. The last thing that I wanted to show you guys is basically how do you drop your stored procedure, right? Now you have used your stored procedure. Let's say here in my stored procedure folder, I have 3 stored procedure. One is read products, other is a read products text, and the third one is a update product. Right? I wanted to delete this stored procedure read products text. How do I do that? Right click, delete it graphically, right? That's one way. How do I do it programmatically? Right? Drop, right? Drop proc procedure name, right? And just give the name of the stored procedure, right? Execute it. That's it. Now the stored procedure has been dropped. If I refresh it, you can't see that anymore. You see, that's gone. So I only have 2 stored procedures right now, right? So that's basically how you can create a stored procedure, alter your stored procedure, use your stored procedure with params. You can update it, you can read it, read your stored procedure, filter it, right? And then you can also, we also saw what are the system stored procedures, and what are the best practices to name your stored procedure, and we also saw how to drop your stored procedure, right? So that's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in a different video. Thank you.